Hello and welcome to the second lesson within topic 1, static electricity. Last lesson we looked at how static electricity is caused and we touched on some of the uses and dangers, but what I want to do is go into a bit more detail about the uses and dangers of static electricity. So we look at success criteria for the lesson. What I've got here, the first one says describe the potential dangers of electrostatics. And this is also linked to the grade A success criteria down here. It's explain what is meant by earthing. Okay, so how is electrostatic charges built up, first of all, and how are they dangerous to us? So what may happen is, as you're walking along across a carpet, I'm just going to use BBC Bitesize website here to show you. As you're walking across a carpet, friction is occurring with your socks, and electrons are being transferred from the carpet onto yourself, so now you become negatively charged. Now when you touch someone or touch an object, for instance, then what's happening is those electrons are flowing through you and jumping across the gap onto the person or the object, and this causes a little shock, and I'm sure you've all felt it before. Okay, so obviously on a day-to-day basis this isn't really too much of an issue, but you know, it can be an issue and there are dangers associated with it. Okay, so for instance, another danger of electrostatics is the lightning. Now I showed you last lesson the Van de Graaff generator, which uses friction to transfer the electrons to the metal dome here. Again, if you touch the metal dome, you get a small shock because those electrons have transferred from yourself to from the metal dome to yourself and into the earth, and then we call this process earthing. Okay, so when can this be dangerous? Now when we're filling up tankers, for instance, what can happen? Obviously you got fuel, and this fuel can then be ignited and cause an explosion. Obviously we don't want that. So the idea of what we do is that we link the aeroplane or the tanker by something what we call an earthing rod, or in this instance a copper conductor. So the copper conductor here is basically attached to the plane. Now what might happen is the plane was flying along, it's become negatively charged because obviously it's going through the air, and the air resistance is creating friction, and that friction is transferring the electrons from the air onto the plane itself, and it's become negatively charged. So in order to get rid of those electrons, it's attached to an earthing rod, so those electrons are able to go into the earth, so there's no spark can be created. Okay, so that's basically the main dangers and how we can reduce the dangers by this process called earthing, and the idea that these electrons travel from the object into the earth so they become safe. Okay, and the last part really I want to focus on now is uses. I know again I looked at some uses last lesson, and I showed you some of the same ones in this PowerPoint about electrically charging the paint droplets and the object with opposite charges so they become attracted to each other. Okay, I'm just going to go back to the last part onto the BBC Bitesize website and go to the next page, page 4, and it gives you a good example and talks through it in each step. So hopefully it loads up. Okay, and yep, here we go. So this is an electrostatic precipitator. Now often in power stations you get a lot of waste gases, unreacted carbon, and this can be damaging to buildings, obviously, and humans if you breathe it in. So what can you do about it? Now this diagram here suggests you can't see it very well. You go onto the website and have a look for yourself. But what happens is the smoke particles come in, they become negatively charged. Okay, and when they then go up through the precipitator, they're attracted to the positive charge plates, which then collect the smoke particles. Okay, and so this is going to be much better for the environment, and it's a positive way that we can use static electricity to our advantage. Okay, again, if you go down, there's some explains about photocopiers and some other things. Okay, so that's pretty much static. Next lesson what we're going to do is electrical circuits and electrical current. But if you want to be able to test yourself on what you're doing, there's a little test here on the BBC website. I'll put the link on to the VLE if you're not sure, and just have a go answering some of those questions.